hormones. This episode is going to be all about hormones. Maybe a little bit of working out, but a lot about hormones. Because hormones are extremely important, especially in the world of bodybuilding and competitive weightlifting sports. Now, outside of bodybuilding and weightlifting sports, hormones are still extremely important. And if you're interested in knowing what a 27-year-old's testosterone levels are like after being off of all testosterone for almost 2 months and utilizing anabolic hormones for greater part of a decade, then stick around to the end of this video because we're about to find out. I am actually headed over right now to the lab over at Pinnacle Performance and Wellness, which is it's a local sports performance and wellness therapy center that was started by a friend of mine, Dr. Alberto Flores. He's a doctor in physical therapy, specializes in sports performance and working with elite athletes to increase performance post-injury and things along those lines. So really, really awesome guy, super smart dude. I'll get some body work done with him as well, so I'm actually going to schedule that today. He does my scraping and cupping and all of my prepping for muscle work and all of that. So going to get some of that on the books and get it scheduled. But anyways, Dr. Alberto started Pinnacle Performance and Wellness a few years back. I can't even remember exactly how long ago he started it. But then he brought on Stuart Riggins, which is another good friend of mine. He is I believe a nurse practitioner or registered nurse or something like that. And he does stem cell therapy, PRP therapy, all sorts of things on that side. So it is a very overarching clinic whenever it comes to performance, advancement, health, longevity, all of that stuff. And then to top it all off, one of my really good friends, Peyton Kemp, he started a telehealth company called Synergy Health and Wellbeing, and they were supplying hormone medications. Shit. Well, almost broke the camera. So my good buddy Peyton started Synergy Health and Wellbeing, which was a telehealth clinic where they were prescribing hormone therapy treatments to individuals online, kind of like some of the other ones that are out there like Transcend or anything along those lines. But he started it because of all of the issues that people were facing with companies like Transcend. Slower times, no real doctors that cared about your health and well-being, nobody there to actually guide you through the process of utilizing hormones. So he started Synergy, and then that took off and got to the point where there was just so much going on, and he ended up having the opportunity to merge with Pinnacle. And so now all of my friends that are over here at Pinnacle, they are very, very well along in the hormone therapy, the health and longevity side of things. And they're changing the game here in Lubbock, truly. So really, really awesome people. We're going to be doing a lot of media work and stuff like that for them. So today I'm just excited to get over there, get some lab work done, finally get some lab work. It's been probably 6 months since I've had any labs drawn, which is honestly outrageous. If you're going to utilize hormones, if you're going to cycle anything, even if it's like SARMs, even if it's like natural test boosters, you need to know where your natural test levels are at. Like, if you don't know what your natural test levels are, what's the point of supplementing to alter them? Because you could have extremely high test levels and you don't even know. You could have extremely low test levels and you may not know. If you have low test levels, we'll talk about what some symptoms of low TR whenever we get into the clinic here. But hormones are very important, and they're something that you need to pay attention to. And if you don't know how to pay attention to your hormones, reach out to me, reach out to somebody who might know. Leave a comment down below and let me know that you're interested in learning more about your hormones, and I'll reach out to you because this is extremely important stuff. If you guys don't know, I have my master's in sports psychology, and I actually specialized in the relationship between hormones and neurotransmitter production and how that affects elite male athletes in sports performance. And so my entire master's research thesis project was a biopsychosocial approach to optimizing elite male athletes' performance. Like, that was the title for my research project. So this is my passion. This is what I love, and I love learning about hormones more than anything else. So if you're interested in learning more about hormones, you need some help, some guidance, some assistance, reach out to me. If I can't help you, I have plenty of friends that definitely can, and we'll figure it out one way or another. So that's all I ask there is just, reach out for help when you need it, right? So we are here at Pinnacle. So let's get in here and let's get some blood drawn. Just schedule, because it's a revolving schedule. So just whatever works for you guys, that way we know for sure I'm there. And so what y'all can't see is my man Stuart over here operating the needle. Got him a little cut off over here. But you are registered nurse, nurse prac?
Nurse prac.
Nurse prac. So he's a nurse prac, does a lot of the stem cell PRP therapy, PRP therapy here. And then my good friend Peyton over here, he's the man with the hormones. So I was telling him a little bit about on the way over here, how important hormones are, how important it is to pay attention to your hormone levels. But what are some signs of low testosterone that men of any age could experience and to look for?
Yeah, when you say men of any age, that's a good point, because you can't use age as a marker anymore.
Not in today's world, yep.
Especially with the younger demographic, 18 to 25. But typically with low T, you're going to be more fatigued. You're going to notice a lot of guys, they can compare it to their previous energy levels, maybe 2, 3, 5, 10 years before. But a drop off in energy, just getting out of bed, like motivation to roll up and go to work, to want to go to the gym after work, or even want to go to the gym, like any kind of physical activity. Some patients see a drop in libido. Or there's just like not any desire for any type of...
Good question for that, because there's this one guy that I don't follow him because I can't stand his content, but he pops up on my stuff all the time. And he posted this video the other day, and he was like, top 3 signs that you have no testosterone in your body. And he's like, number 1, no morning wood. And I was just like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's like, that is not the first indicator that you have no testosterone.
No, it definitely, but it definitely catches people's attention.
Right.
I will say, with elevated testosterone levels, it's probably more of a regular thing. But it wouldn't be if you don't have it. There's probably guys walking around that are 700 to 900 without morning wood. You jump on therapy and your levels are 1100 to 1400, it's probably going to happen a lot more. Usually you see some type of weight gain out of nowhere. It could be a thyroid issue, but a lot of times for men, it's indicated by their test levels crashing or falling.
I feel like that's what he said was a really big point that a lot of people don't understand, or they skip over one of the two. Like being 4th or 5th down the line of symptoms that you experience when you have low testosterone means that there's 4 or 5 other things that are more important for your testosterone function than libido, than muscle building. It's like it's cognitive function, it's physical feel and energy. It's like there's so many more things that go into testosterone than just building muscle or having wood. It's like having libido. So it's like, pay attention to those indicators.
And that kind of, lets you know where people's focus is, right? Like instead of worrying about how their mind's performing, their, all the important things, they're just focused on sex. Like we're such a sex-driven culture. You got your guys that they're dieting. They're putting in the work in the gym. They're working out 4 or 5 times a week, really watching calories, and they're seeing no progress. The recovery's terrible. They're sore for 3 or 4 days. So you kind of see those would be some symptoms to look for as well, where you're just not seeing the needle move nearly like it was, especially for the folks that have been working out for 15 years. They know their bodies, and then all of a sudden they see a fall off.
Huge change,
One of the, over the years, probably the thing that drives me nuts the most, and truthfully what I think is the most harmful to patients is, I can't tell you how many guys that I've had come in that they've been placed on an antidepressant, and they never check their testosterone levels. It's because so many of our symptoms of low testosterone mimic depression, and you go, now we're messing with your neurotransmitters instead of just correcting your hormone levels.
And they go hand in hand. That's what's crazy. Like that's the biggest thing. Like that's what I found my passion heaviest in, was the fact that hormones can affect neurological production. Neurological production can affect hormones. Like we can think ourselves into low testosterone, and that's wild to me. We can literally tell ourselves and convince ourselves that we have low testosterone, and our body will start producing less testosterone. Like that's crazy. So what did we do here just now? What did we pull?
So we just ran our full panel. So that's going to check cortisol levels, IGF, total free testosterone, sex hormone binding globulin, estrogen levels, thyroid panel, basic CBC, CMP,
vitamin D, vitamin B12, homocysteine.
I think this one has the DHEA on it also.
Absolutely, the forgotten hormone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about DHEA over the past few months.
And if I can comment on that, part of the problem that I see when people come in is they can tell me a total testosterone level, but they have no idea what their estrogen is, or what their free testosterone is, or what their sex hormone binding globulin is. And FSH-LH, that's another one that we're testing. And those are all things that need to be tested to truly adequately figure out why are you deficient in testosterone.
Right.
It's not just the total testosterone that needs to be looked at.
Right. Yeah, because there's a signaling from the brain to the body that causes the production of testosterone, and it could be somewhere in that signal that is causing a low T.
You have to find if it's a disruption of the signal or if it's actually just the testicles aren't working like what they're supposed to be.
Right. Absolutely. So what would be the main indicators for low testosterone? Obviously, low total testosterone. What else?
In terms of symptoms or
like
what
on the
might contribute
labs,
to it?
like when we see labs come back.
So, for instance, we
Like with
mentioned,
me being enhanced, what's one of my biggest things that I want to pay attention to for natural hormone function?
well, so your FSH and LH are going to be depressed with testosterone therapy, and we expect that. Now, I should see your total testosterone probably up around 1,000, maybe a little more. I don't like to put a number on it because if with the current research, we're figuring out that 1,500 is actually a potential normal physiologic level.
Absolutely.
Whereas, 15 years ago, if you talked about going over 1,000 on somebody, you were
Doctor,
really pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable in treatment terms. And, I will probably see your estrogen go up a little bit, and that's normal. We get our estrogen from aromatization of testosterone over into estrogen, and so we'll likely see your estrogen go up a little bit. Free testosterone should go up a little bit, or not a little bit, it should go up concordantly with total testosterone.
Okay.
Primary thing is we are going to see suppression of certain hormones and peptides in the body, that's expected.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of decreasing FSH and LH, that's where one of the side effects of testosterone comes from, with like testicular atrophy and decrease, not omission, of sperm production.
Right.
You are still producing sperm, but those are things that we can offset if somebody's looking to have kids, or if they just don't like the testicular atrophy. We have ways of stimulating FSH and LH to regain natural production.
And so that's a good caveat there, because that's actually the basis of this whole video for the most part, is the fact that, my wife and I have been trying for almost 2 years for our first, and we're still struggling to conceive for whatever reason. Don't know if it's me, don't know if it's her yet. We're about to get all that checked out. But, I've been off now of any exogenous testosterone for 2 months. Friday will be the full 2 months off. Been only on HCG, 500 IUs every other day, if I remember. And clomiphene, 25 mgs every day for the most part. 12.5 split up twice a day. So from that, I guess luteinizing and follicles should be elevated, but then tests would be down.
Your test will be down, but probably not as much as what you'd expect, because with the HCG and clomiphene, you are stimulating endogenous production of testosterone, and so we can actually see elevations of the testosterone with that. But it's not going to be at the levels of what you've been at with supplementing.
Right. Okay.
I will say, in my experience, I'm going through kind of the same thing where we're trying to get pregnant. I've been on testosterone for 17 years. I haven't come off.
Yeah.
So I went down the road of having the semen analysis done, and with just the HCG, I think I told you, I went from 1 million count to 18 million with just supplementing HCG.
Yeah.
And then on my labs, like you said, I was able to see. I was expecting a larger incremental jump on the labs, but I was still considered low. But according to the fertility specialists, 5 million is kind of the base number of, like, you need at least 5.
At least 5.
And they want you to have closer to 20 million.
Yeah.
And I think they wash it and they analyze like the actual quality swimmers that you have. So those were my numbers on just HCG.
Yeah.
I don't have any yet with the enclomiphene, but I did do labs recently, and the labs did not change on FSH, LH from HCG only to enclomiphene.
Interesting.
So I'm going to go ahead and do a sperm analysis to see if that number from 18 million went up. I would expect it to.
Right.
But I wonder if there's not necessarily, I was expecting a larger jump in my FSH, LH on my labs.
Yeah.
But it was crazy to see that huge jump from 1 million to 18, and it wasn't a really big jump on my labs. So.
Right.
Truthfully, I think that's I don't have a basis to go off of it, but when you told me that your production had increased that much just off of HCG, I was like, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, when I heard 1 million, I was like, okay, maybe I should consider coming off, and that will eventually be the next thing that I do. In the back of my mind, I thought if I hit 20 million on T and they tell me that's the number they're shooting for, I'm not coming off.
Right.
You know, there's risk involved with that, and then you know my well-being is now taken into account if I have to come completely off.
Right.
So I was trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
So my goal is keep in the loop. Probably in the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
we're going to go have that analysis done again with the enclomiphene, and I'm on 300 IU 4 times weekly of the HCG. So really open for a number of 20 million.
Yeah, no, I'm anxious to see where it comes out at, because that's, I don't know, like, and it's something where I just kind of theorized that, you know, putting in exogenous and trying to increase endogenous at the same time would just cause some sort of complication in the system. Not that it will or it won't, but, you know, just in theory, I was like, if I'm putting an exogenous form of testosterone in my body while my body is trying to increase the endogenous production, even if it still has the luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone artificially increased from the HCG and the enclomiphene, is there still something that exogenous testosterone is doing to cause the infertility?
Correct.
You know,
I've had numerous patients that came completely off. We put them on the HCG and clomiphene protocol, hitting 25 to 30 million.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I came from. And I was like, man, if I'm gonna suffer for any longer, I'm just gonna get it. Like, I'm just gonna do it. Like, it's been almost 2 years. I want to cycle again. Like, I want to become a pro bodybuilder, and I can't do that with no hormones in my body. Yeah. So we're just gonna go all the way down and get it done, hopefully, and then build it back. So that's the plan there. So one question that I had pop into my head, because I have been now on just enclomiphene and HCG off of testosterone. That's the first time I've really taken it this seriously and paid this close of attention to it. Do y'all experience any feedback from the testosterone levels being similar, but the feeling being different, taking exogenous versus endogenous testosterone production? Like, if somebody that's on enclomiphene, even if they have the same test levels, does it feel different than taking exogenous tests? Because I feel like it does.
I don't have any feedback because a majority of our patients don't go back and forth. I can tell you, for the guys that are coming in 700, 800 natural, that choose the HCG and clomiphene route to kind of milk this out even further, you know, their levels are almost doubling. Essentially, they're hitting that 1400. And I can remember just by seeing them in person, they visibly looked, they felt great. But for them, the feedback I've always received is, you know, I love this. This feels much better than what I was. I don't have a whole lot of patients that are kind of in your situation where they're exogenous, endogenous, and back and forth, and like comparing the difference. I think if I have to come completely off, then I'll be just like, I'll have some feedback on how I feel. But you know, like just your natural levels, I mean, it's hard to do a comparison that way because you're probably with HCG and clomiphene, natty. I mean, I think high side would probably be 500. And it's just not going to feel nearly the same as 1,200 to 2,000 on exogenous.
I will say, so when I started hormone management roughly 15 years ago, back then what we would do is we would cycle, especially if somebody was having testicular atrophy. It was more for that purpose than it was for sperm production. So we would cycle 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off of HCG, and I got put on a similar protocol. And I will tell you that 8 weeks on, I still had the motivation and everything and the energy that I gained from exogenous testosterone. But when you feel, truthfully, when I would feel that natural testosterone hit during my HCG cycle, it was a whole nother. It was a different feeling.
That's kind of what I thought too, because I was like, I don't feel bad as I should. Like last time I came all the way off, I didn't do really HCG or enclomiphene therapy. I just did a really, really drawn out taper. And I just reverse titrated all the way down to like, I was doing like 50 mgs every other day of test, all the way down to like nothing. And that one, I really didn't notice the drop until I was off for like a month. And then I had no testosterone in my body. I read 111 nanograms on my blood work that time. And so I was obviously extremely depleted, but I didn't do any HCG or enclomiphene. This time with doing the HCG and enclomiphene, I'm able to at least maintain cognitive function better. Like I'm at least not just in a state of like, you know, haze 24/7 like I was back then, but it's definitely not there, you know. It's like,
well, so again, I'm not a fertility specialist, but to speak to that side of it, from the hormone side of it, when you tell guys, sorry, you got to come off of testosterone, otherwise you're not going to produce sperm, that's great, except you're taking them back to probably lower than what their baseline is, where you didn't feel like engaging in any of that at all.
No,
because again, we have depressive type symptoms whenever our testosterone's low. And so it just makes the whole process that much harder both on the spouse and on the guy.
Yeah.
Because nothing's functioning like what it's supposed to whenever you're low on testosterone. So the thought process to me of going, sorry, you got to come off of that, when we have other options that we could potentially boost, like what Peyton did, boost sperm production back up.
Yeah.
Then you keep guys where, all right, I've got the energy to work towards this and the function to work towards this.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I've always heard and what we had talked about, stay on 100 to 150 just to keep the energy in there and the libido up, but then use the HCG and clomiphene for the fertility. But I guess after a year trying, I was just like,
well, no,
yeah,
for
all the way
sure.
out.
You're going to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
I've just always been kind of curious.
And it
about
makes
that part of
sense. Yeah, it makes sense because it's a lot harder to want to conceive whenever you don't have the drive to conceive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, even fully optimized. I mean, it becomes like a business deal.
Absolutely.
Where you're limited on when you're supposed to do it and timing, and then it's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine if everything were plummeted and feeling depressed and like probably my self-image would be even lower. Just can't.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine. It'd be pure work.
Yeah, the past 2 months have been horrible. So I'm honestly on that upward peak now where it's like I have more energy and I'm actually alive. But like 2 weeks ago, we went to Dallas this past weekend. That was horrible. Like I was just a zombie the whole time. Like Austin and Rachel were like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "I have no hormones." Oh man. But yeah, so I'm not gonna drag this out too much longer. Guys, just keep it in mind. I'm 27 years old, struggling with conceiving my first child, struggling with hormone maintenance. So I'm not anti-anabolics. I'm not anti-utilizing hormones, using performance-enhancing drugs. Just do it the right way. Make sure you understand from the beginning what the right way is.
Hey, and don't use it as a contraceptive. I've conceived my previous children on heavy doses, bodybuilding back in the day.
Yep.
Heavy doses of anabolics.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So don't think that you're immune to getting someone pregnant as well. So it works both ways.
And then are y'all still doing telehealth if anybody is interested via YouTube? Okay, so you guys, I will drop in the comments down below the link to Pinnacle Performance and Wellness. They are still doing telehealth medicine. So if you guys want to call in, set up a consultation with either one of these gentlemen, they obviously know a lot about hormones and they can help you regulate your hormones, get them on track, and make sure you're achieving the things that you want to achieve in life.
Perfect. So I guess we are here today to discuss the lab results that we pulled last week. So he's going to give us a rundown on what my blood's looking like.
So your testosterone level was down to 107.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been roughly a month off of hormones at that point. And then your FSH and your LH, while you were taking enclomiphene, and I don't think you were taking HCG at that point.
No, I got stopped.
Yeah. Your FSH is at 4.6 and your LH is at 1.6. So FSH, kind of anticipated levels especially for fertility reasons, are expected to be anywhere from 1.9 up to about 12.5. Over 12.5 is actually kind of considered counterproductive to fertility.
Okay.
And so you're sitting just below kind of mid-range on that. To be frank with you, I would have expected slightly higher FSH with being on the enclomiphene. Mm-hmm. What dose of enclomiphene were you taking?
25 whenever I was religious with it. And that's the problem is, and I'm horrible with staying religious on orals.
Understood, yeah.
I'd rather stick a needle in my body.
That's right. Understood.
Yeah, so I forget. It's usually one or the other. I mean, I'm usually good at taking 12 at least every day, so I'm pretty consistent on 12.5, but sometimes I'll forget that other half.
Right.
So,
Would you say, when you say inconsistently, you're doing it at least 80% of the days?
Yeah.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, when you look at it from a standpoint of the negative feedback loop of the body, you would anticipate that the FSH would be lower if the body is producing the desired amount. So from that standpoint, we may actually be doing pretty good. Now, of course, one way to evaluate that is semen analysis and make sure what your sperm count is. You may just be producing and the body's not pushing out more. Although, again, with the exogenous enclomiphene, I would expect it to be a little bit higher. Okay. Again, negative feedback loop. If you're not producing enough, I would expect FSH and LH to be much, much higher as the pituitary is trying to push, production. But
Right.
so anyway, I guess, obviously, like we said, the next step will be semen analysis to get a good sperm count. And then depending on what that shows, it may be that we push a little higher on the dose of the enclomiphene. Maybe that we go back to doubling up on the HCG and enclomiphene. I would like to get you to a level, I would like to see a level of sperm count that, okay, I'm doing okay.
Right.
We can get you started back on HRT to get you to feeling better. Again, like we talked about, I've never understood being like, here, let's take you off of everything that makes you feel like trying to produce a baby. And, So, but anyway, what are your thoughts on all that?
I mean, that sounds kind of where I'm at. I'm thinking get semen analysis, and hopefully it's in a good spot. And if it is, then I'm saying I think let's get me back on TRT because
Right.
Being off sucks. And I mean, it was one of those where I didn't know if I needed to come off or not. It was just been trying for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and I was like, man, I've done HMG, I've done HMG HCG, I've done HMG HCG and enclomiphene. Like, I mean, I was in menopause for a month. Like, I felt horrible. I had hot flashes. I mean, it was awful. And I was like, if that didn't even work, then like maybe there's something in the testosterone that's causing that negative feedback to not be as strong as what it should, or something there. And so I was like, well, just cancel them off one at a time.
Yeah.
Well,
I certainly don't disagree with your approach to it. I mean, at some point you've got to look at the possible effect that the testosterone's having on it.
Right.
So I probably we would have had the same discussion had you not done it yourself.
Yeah.
But as we've seen, somebody coming back with 40 or 50 million on their count on testosterone with HCG and enclomiphene, then fantastic. You're gonna be feeling good and be able to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
If we come back 10 to 20 million, we may not want to jump back on the HRT just yet.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep.
So.
That sounds like a good approach. Was there anything else in there that was? There was one that I wasn't super certain about that was high. I think just slightly elevated. I think it was on my CBCs maybe, or.
I think it was your MPV. Yeah, MPV was a little bit high. So the MPV is platelet size, and so you have more immature platelets than you do mature platelets, and so the balance of the size of the platelets is off.
Do you think that would be because of came off of testosterone?
Potentially, yeah. There's multiple things that can affect that, but blood production can affect that, and so it's only a few points, like 0.3 off, and so nothing that I would be greatly worried about, and nothing that I think would be affecting what we're talking about. But yeah, it was a little bit elevated.
Okay, cool.
I actually see that fairly commonly with when guys are, especially when you're getting the thicker blood and everything like that.
Yeah, well, that's what I noticed that my hematocrit always stays elevated. I mean, I'm in a set of teens. So that's chilling. That's no testosterone too. Like that's what's wild.
Right.
I'm walking around at 19.
I was gonna say you're just a big producer.
And I was having some issues a couple years ago with my distribution width, and that was kind of freaking me out because I saw a bunch of studies that related RDW to heart complications. And so I've definitely had blood issues. My dad was on TRT and he had to come off because he just couldn't get his hypertension under control. And I mean, I told him, I was like, 90% of that would be fixed with proper administration techniques, but that's doctors or biweekly or whatever other crap they're pressing. So, but I mean, I know that I'm much more manageable whenever I do dose more frequently and stuff like that. But I figured that platelet size was probably because of coming off the test maybe. So.
Yeah, and I think, I'm somewhat inconsistent in my administration, but when you can maintain that steady, then everything kind of balances out versus hormone spike drop, which is why I don't like the spaced out dosing.
Yes,
I'm a much bigger fan of the more frequent dosing.
Yep.
Tell me what's been going on.
So in 2019, I hadn't deadlifted since high school.
Okay.
My max deadlift in high school was 350 pounds.
Okay.
I decided that I was on some trend and
Okay.
decided that I was going to pull 500. I did,
Yeah.
but it also pulled my trap
Okay.
completely. Like, it was purple.
Yeah.
Like, I felt immediate sensation of just burning, like somebody stabbed me in the back
Okay.
right off the edge
Yeah.
of my spine. So it's deep middle trap.
So you did get bruising and everything?
Yep.
Okay.
I went to the
Okay.
bathroom, took my shirt off, and there was like a feather of purple down my spine.
Okay.
Like right off to the left side, right off the edge of my spine.
Okay.
And I did a lot of like CBD lotion, iced it and stuff like that, but I never really rehabbed it.
Sure.
Stopped training back, didn't do deadlifts for a long time. And it got better, it got functional.
Yeah.
But now certain triggers will make that thing flare up so bad. And it's like, it could be sleeping wrong. Like it could
Okay.
be laying on the pillow wrong and I wake up and I can't move my neck for 4 days. Like,
Okay. Okay.
And so 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I went and trained in Dallas with Austin Richardson, big dude.
Yeah.
And we were doing some chest supported rows.
The swole realtor.
Yeah, yeah, the most.
Shout out
muscular
to Austin,
realtor.
by the way.
Yeah, shout out Austin, love you, bro. So we were doing some chest supported rows, and we were
Okay.
pushing each other, you know, and I was pulling too high, and
Yeah.
I knew I was pulling too high, and I didn't feel anything during that workout. Didn't feel anything for probably 3 to 4 days.
Okay.
And then over the weekend, that next weekend, so almost a week later, I woke up one morning and I was like, my neck was paralyzed. Like
Okay.
I could not turn this way, like at all.
Okay.
And I just had so
Did you
much
feel it in?
pain.
Did you feel it in that trap area?
Yep.
Okay.
It's all the way.
Okay.
It radiates just from the middle of my trap up to the base of my neck.
Okay. So we know, like, anatomy-wise, like your trap. There's upper trap, right? Like it's called the trapezius because it's a diamond, right? So you have upper trap, which is like shoulders, neck.
Yep.
Middle trap, which is kind of in between the shoulder blades, and then lower trap, which is like the lower part, like
Right.
off the shoulder blades at the very bottom. That
Yeah.
creates that diamond shape.
It's the shield at the bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're talking upper, middle, or more lower when
Yeah.
you're like when you feel your symptoms. Which one? Upper,
Middle.
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 Okay.
Yeah,
So that's where.
Yeah, it feels like it's just dead in the middle of my trap, right to the left of the spine.
Okay. Cool. So what we'll do is let's go. We're probably gonna go shirt off, and let's have you go ahead and face that way. Left or right?
Left.
Okay. Any tenderness here?
Yep.
Right there.
Yep.
Okay. Is this where you
yeah.
primarily feel it?
Yep.
Okay. Honestly, dude, that's a very it's a very interesting injury. You know, you don't
Yeah.
typically hear of somebody like injuring the middle trap on a deadlift.
On a deadlift,
Yeah.
yeah.
So my guess is that you probably, when you were pulling, you probably rounded a little
Yep, I was
bit,
rounded,
you know,
yep. Mhm.
and so that just caused that muscle to like really get strained.
Yeah, I
and
think
you can
that's-
tell there's a little bit of like, when I look at middle, like the kind of upper fibers of the middle trap, we're definitely we've lost some. It's a little bit more hypertrophy on this side than this side. Like we've lost some muscle,
Makes
muscle
sense.
there.
Yeah.
So
Because I mean, it does. Like I mean, there's some pulling movements where I can't get a good contraction on that side, and
yeah.
yeah.
do you get adjustments or anything?
I haven't in probably a year.
Okay.
I used to go like every other week or so, but
Okay. That muscle tone feels about the same on both sides. So what we'll do, I'm not feeling any, let me back up a little before I speak. Tenderness there.
Yep.
Okay. What we'll probably do, yeah, we got some bands going on. But since it's so tender, like just the whole shoulder blade, I think the best point of action to start is going to be scraping all this first.
Okay.
Trying to knock out as much like superficial dysfunction as we can get. And then when it starts to become a little bit more pinpoint, like, hey, it feels better, but like I still feel it here and
It's
here.
literally like right where you just pushed is where
That's tender right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So I'm right there.
Yep.
So I may try, we may go ahead and stick a needle in there today too then.
Okay.
And just try and needle that, okay?
Yeah.
So let me get, you can stay actually, because I'll probably have you kind of elbows on knees and kind of rounded.
Okay.
That'll bring those muscles up to the surface.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anyway, I was gonna tell you, like, you know, when we were struggling with our, and feel free to put this in, and if it makes sense as any part of the video,
Yeah.
or another section of the video as far as like how
Going over the lab work and stuff.
Yeah, man. Because I mean, well, it's just, you know, talking about fertility issues and stuff like that. It's such a thing that it's so common, but
Yeah.
people don't talk about it.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yep.
literally when we were going through it, it's like everybody we talked to about it, we're like, oh yeah, we had trouble having kids.
Right, yeah.
Have y'all already kind of experienced that a little bit?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you definitely feel like you're the only one until you start talking to people and they're like, yeah, us too. And my biggest thing is like, you know, I'm 27 and, you know, I've been messing with anabolics for, you know, well, technically I started SARMs when I was a freshman in high school, not knowingly, but that's what they put me on, you know.
Well, we hit a whole segment on, you know, what that's done to your hormones and things like that as you've developed, you know. So. And
that's where I really come from. Is it's like, you know, I know I've got a lot of younger guys that'll follow my stuff, and you know, if I can just help one of them not make as many of the negative decisions that I made, because I mean, like, if I wouldn't go back and change anything. Like, I'm a lab rat. I love it. Like, you know, I love treating myself and trying new things.
I do a lot of the same with like the recovery peptides and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So I get it.
You know, there's definitely a responsible way to do it, and I did not do it responsibly in the beginning.
Well, and so, like, you know, we were doing all the fertility treatments, you know, the artificial inseminations, all that. So I think we did 4 of them, maybe, you know, and finally we were like, okay, what's the next step? Well, you know, in vitro, right? Which is like insanely expensive, dude. Like 20 grand, you know?
Yeah.
So I have a cousin of mine that's an OBG in Colombia, and she works at like one of the more famous, popular fertility clinics down there.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, we decided to take a break from and it was going to cost like $5 grand, you know? And so we decided to take a break from the artificial inseminations, and then we're kind of getting prepped up to, you know, do like the consultation and see, you know, go in that route. And then we went and saw another fertility specialist, Dr. Fi's her name, because we just wanted to get a different opinion and just talk to another one and just kind of see what her opinion was. And my wife went in and they did the ultrasound, and she happened to have like a nice, she was like, well, looks like you have a nice, you know, you're ovulating right now. You look at this, you know, you have a nice, good looking egg here. Why don't you guys, you know, go home tonight and do the deed? And you know, I loved her because she like prayed over that egg.
That's amazing.
Well, anyway, we have a picture of that egg on our fridge still, because it was basically like that became my daughter, you know, before it was even fertilized. So anyway, you know, we did, and we were kind of like, okay, whatever, you know, we've been through all this. And then right before we started that whole journey of IVF, man, like just, you know, went through all these, you know, artificial means to try and get pregnant.
Right.
And then God allowed us just to do it the natural way, you know. So it'll happen at the least expected time, you know.
And it's one of those things too where I think, you know, we did a prayer and fasting for the last 3 days of the year with our church. And
Where y'all go to church?
Over at Harvest.
Oh, okay, cool.
And you know, they had the church open all day, and so we'd go up there all throughout the day and just pray and sit in the peace. And you know, God was very heavy on my heart that there's just, you have to create a space for him to put something in your life.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that the space that we've created is not where he wants to put a child.
Yeah.
And I was like, I totally understand it. You know, it's like, and until we create the space where that child is going to prosper, he's holding back for the right reasons, you know? And so that's where I really feel like we're at. I feel like we're, you know, just a few months away from getting our stuff sorted out. And I don't know, it might even happen this month. I've got a weird feeling like it might be this month. Who knows? So
that's when we found out we were pregnant. Or, yeah, I mean, that's when my wife surprised me, actually. It was in January.
January? Yeah, heck yeah.
shot of this. And then get right back to the spot we were at. I think this is gonna, you know, because this has been going on for so long, it's not gonna be a one-time fix. You know, we're probably gonna have to work a few sessions out to try and, because from how much you lit up, I gotta let all this it's gonna turn into a nice little bruise, and then once that bruise clears up, I'll scrape it again and kind of see what's left, and at the same time we'll be doing some needling.
That spot is tender.
That spot I just pressed on? Yeah, that's where I'm gonna, and that's one of the spots you lit up pretty good on. So would you say right there is like the most tender spot out of like is it where you normally feel your symptoms?
No, it's usually more closer to the spine a little bit, and a little further up is where it kind of really starts from.
Yeah,
but it definitely goes to that point.
Okay.
Yeah, like right around in that area over to the left is.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and sit up for me.
All right. Oof.
So let's let all that calm down, and then I'm gonna, like I said, we'll follow back up like in about a week or so. I'm gonna scrape all this again, or maybe I might try. Sometimes I'll alternate between scraping and cupping. I like doing both because it's a different like stimuli on the tissue. Like whereas scraping is more of a pushing type stimulation, cupping is more of a suction type of a sensation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that way you can we can try and get all that to relax, and I'm gonna keep needling all that to see if we can. It wasn't too jumpy, but dude, my expectation honestly, the more chronic things have been going on, those muscles are dormant.
The more dead it is, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
And so like hopefully, next time after that, all of a sudden that thing starts twitching like crazy. That's good. That's a good sign. Kind of like when we needled your lats. You remember how much twitching we were getting?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because you probably have decent lat activation.
Yeah.
This has probably not been functioning correctly. So let's get it functioning correctly, and then we'll talk about like the actual rehab exercises to actually get this to start balancing out.
Cool.
Because I'll do a little bit of muscle testing as well to kind of see just how it is strength-wise and all that, and what you're using to compensate and stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, man.
Whew. Feeling it.
Is it sore?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be sore.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it.
Yeah.